Not only did I catch my wife cheating on me with her coworker while she was away on business, but I also surprised her. As it does every day, the alarm went off at 6 o'clock in the morning, which marked the beginning of our day. My wife, Jessica, and I got out of bed as the sun began to rise, despite the fact that we did not much want to do so. As I sat up and placed my feet on the floor, I couldn't help but groan since I was beginning to feel quite exhausted. "Why do you act like you're so old?" Jessica made a joke as she was walking to the restroom. As I reflected on how much fun I had the night before, I responded with a joke that said, "After last night, I feel like I am." She never failed to make things exhilarating. Because Jessica's work trip began today, I was left to fend for myself for the next week. I was completely by myself. To be honest, I wasn't exactly overjoyed about it. As I listened to the sound of the shower running, I considered going with her, but ultimately decided against it. I wanted a little bit more time to myself because I was still feeling the repercussions of what had happened the night before. Jessica returned to the bedroom brimming with vitality, which made my slow pace appear much more sluggish than it already was. "The moment has come to get moving, so get up, you sluggish bones." In a humorous manner, she reminded me that we have expenses that need to be paid. In response, I said, Okay, I'm up. A wake-up call is being given to me as I make my way slowly to the bathroom. The two of us shared a breakfast together when we had finished getting ready, and then we went our own ways, with Jessica going to the airport and me going to my job. Both of us are employed in a manufacturing company in the city of St. Louis. Jessica is a lawyer who specializes in business negotiations, and she frequently travels for work, such as the trip she is currently taking to Denver to establish a new business arrangement with an aerospace company. There are a few times a year that these business trips take place, and each one lasts for approximately 1 week. Jessica, who is now 35 years old, graduated from the State University's law school 12 years ago. Her presence is not hard to miss. With a height of approximately 5 feet 4 inches, a weight of approximately 125 pounds, and a figure that is 3'4" I was immediately captivated by Jessica from the very beginning. Jessica is a lawyer, and my name is John Baker. I am an engineer, and I work in the same field as Jessica. At the age of 37, I am 6 feet 1 inch tall and maintain a healthy body through consistent physical activity. We both have a passion for golf, and we frequently participate in foursomes with our friends. When we first met, it was love at first sight for me. Our relationship began during a picnic that was held by our workplace. After just 6 months, we finally tied the knot. Our marriage has been going strong for 7 years, and we have recently purchased the home of our dreams with the intention of expanding our family there. When we have children, Jessica's desire is to be a stay-at-home mom, and our parents are very nearby, so they are encouraging her to pursue this dream. Following the conclusion of this business trip, she intends to discontinue the use of her birth control pills. There were tears in Jessica's eyes as she got into the driver's seat as I helped her pack her car for her trip this morning after breakfast. I said farewell with a kiss and noticed that she was crying as she began to get into the car. Having a positive outlook on our future together, I expressed my hope that we won't have to part ways in such a manner for a considerable amount of time. She voiced her displeasure with the idea of parting ways by saying, "I can't wait for the trips to stop." I tried to reassure her that I, too, dread these goodbyes just as much as you do. I proposed that we make Friday night more convenient for you by ordering some meal delivery so that you can unwind. That sounds incredibly good. Before she left, she said, "See you then." Before she left. After keeping an eye on her vehicle until it was no longer visible, I finally walked back inside to get ready for work. After getting a cup of coffee at the office, I walked directly to my desk to get some work done. After then, my phone started to ring. I am Baker and I have picked him up. "I'd like to invite you to come to my office, John." The request was made by Hubert from the other line. According to my response, of course, I'm on my way. Taking my coffee with me to meet with my employer, I responded to the question. I was invited to take a seat upon his arrival. In his conversation with John, he said that there is an opportunity that you could like. Noting that you had mentioned that Jessica would be absent, the thought occurred to me. As a result of his illness, our technician in California, Gerald Carter, is unable to address a problem that a customer in San Jose is experiencing. Taking into consideration that you are quite familiar with the equipment in question, would you be open to the possibility of fixing the issue in San Jose? In the present moment, I do not possess a lot of things here, and because Jessica is not around, I am available. Where do they need me? And how soon is it? Immediately he responded to the question. Your trip arrangements will be taken care of by Lucy. It would be helpful if you could inform the customer about your visit and go over the issue in greater detail. Well, I'm on it now, I said, suddenly feeling excited about the trip. Okay, I'm on it now. This afternoon, I will return home to gather my belongings and then board a trip. I will be able to arrive to the client's location first thing in the morning tomorrow. At the end of our conversation, Hubert said, "All right. I hope you have a safe journey. In order to inform Lucy about my travel requirements, I went to her desk and informed her. After that, I called the customer from my desk to inquire about the specifics of their problem. I then went back to my house to begin packing. I couldn't help but smile as I drove home, thinking about a fast notion that came to me unexpectedly. I would be able to surprise Jessica by going to Denver if I finished things earlier than expected. I was already enthusiastic about the trip, but the idea of seeing her in Denver without any prior notice made me much more so. I was at the airport waiting for my flight, and I attempted to call Jessica on her mobile phone, but I did not receive a response. I decided to leave a message for her, in which I informed her that I would be staying at my parents' house for a few days, and that she may contact my cell phone late at night. Everything went off without a hitch. By Tuesday afternoon, I had resolved the issue for our client and ensured that their electronic devices were operating without any problems. I made a hasty reservation for a flight to Denver, intending to reach there by 9 o'clock at night. Mountain Time MT? Following my departure from the San Jose hotel where I had been staying, I made my way to the San Francisco airport, where I ate dinner before boarding my aircraft. I received a phone call from Jessica while I was eating, and we had a brief conversation. She inquired about my parents, and I pretended to be with them, as if I were having a conversation with them. However, Jessica mentioned that she was quite exhausted and intended to simply sleep in her hotel room that evening. She stated that the negotiations were progressing in a positive direction. After expressing our affection for one another, we ended the call, immediately following dinner. I boarded my flight and arrived at Jessica's luxurious hotel at approximately 9:45 p.m. After verifying my identity, the personnel at the hotel provided me with a key card that allowed me to enter her suite. The lamp was turned on over the desk, and her laptop was closed when I entered the room in a discreet manner. Nevertheless, Jessica was nowhere to be found. After putting my suitcase down, I went to the restroom and the bedroom, but neither of them contained any people. When I initially heard the news, I was a little perplexed since I thought perhaps Jessica hadn't returned to her room yet. The decision of whether or not to wait for her in the room or to go look for her in the hotel lounge was a difficult one for me to make. Then, I became aware that the door leading to the subsequent room was slightly ajar. Without making a sound, I stepped over and manually opened the door by pushing it open. I decided to look at the living room of the suite that was located next door, which was also vacant. I entered the room because I was curious, but then I heard a noise coming from the bedroom, which caused me to jump. I was experiencing nausea and vomiting, and I was breaking out in a cold sweat. I moved closer to the entrance of the bedroom in a discreet manner. As soon as I looked inside the room that was only dimly illuminated, I found myself unable to breathe. Jessica was there, naked, and a man I did not know was laying on the bed with his face concealed from me. I was unable to see his face. I had a strong desire to rush in and confront Jessica, to vent all of my rage in the direction of the man who was lying on the bed. On the other hand, I was able to bring the flood of emotions that were raging inside of me under control by going back to Jessica's apartment. When I was ready to snap pictures on the trip, I grabbed the digital camera that I had brought with me and adjusted its settings to accommodate low light. I also turned off the flash. I then returned to the entrance of the bedroom in a composed manner. While remaining silent, I snapped a number of photographs of the events that were taking place on the bed, making sure that they did not see me. Because they were so engrossed in what they were doing, they failed to notice me at all, which made it possible for me to record this act of betrayal on camera. A business card belonging to David Price was discovered by me while I searched through Jessica's open briefcase that was sitting on the table before I left her apartment. A key figure in our company's negotiation process. I decided to keep the car for a later time. When I got back to her room, I used the interface wire that I always carry with me to connect my camera to her laptop system. It was simple to upload a photograph from my camera to her laptop because the software that we use for images is the same on both of our laptops. I then quietly left her room after I had finished taking the photograph that revealed what she was doing on her laptop, which was the backdrop picture. After that, I packed away my camera. Feeling the full weight of her betrayal, I headed to the elevator while making a concerted effort to keep my emotions in check and holding back tears. I returned the key to the room to the front desk and immediately called the airline to inquire about the earliest flight that would provide me with a return to St. Louis. To my good fortune, there was a flight that would make it possible for me to return home by 9:30 in the morning. Considering that Jessica typically begins her day by turning on her laptop while sitting at the bargaining table, I believed that this timing would coincide with that behavior. At this precise moment, she would realize that she had been caught, which would effectively mark the beginning of the end of our marriage. Following that, I made my way back to the airport and got into a motel that was local to the airport. I allowed myself to let out all of the pent-up anguish that I had been holding in, even though I was too uneasy to sleep. I continued going over the disturbing images that were running through my thoughts. I had no more tears left by the time I left the motel at 5 in the morning, and I was resolved to put an end to our marriage as soon as possible. And upon entering my vehicle in St. Louis, I was immediately greeted by the sound of my mobile phone calling. After seeing that it was Jessica who was calling, I made the decision not to answer the call and instead turned off my phone. With my arrival at home, the house phone began to ring, and with a cursory examination, I discovered that it was Jessica once more. Her message was left on my voicemail because I did not pick up the phone when she called. I overheard her saying, "John, you just need to give me a call back as soon as you possibly can. This is of utmost significance." I changed my clothing and walked out to get a U-Haul truck without paying attention to Jessica's angry message. I did this without reacting to her. As soon as I arrived back, I immediately began packing, with the intention of getting everything out of the house before Jessica returned home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I went ahead and transported all of my belongings to a storage unit that I had hired. For the purpose of discussing the possibility of getting a divorce, I had scheduled a meeting with our attorney before I started packing. After I had finished putting everything away in storage, I headed straight to the office of the attorney to initiate the divorce process as soon as possible. Despite the fact that I entertained the idea of citing infidelity as the grounds for our divorce, my decision was to focus on irreconcilable differences instead, and I chose to keep the infidelity as a backup plan in case things became sticky. In addition to that, I instructed the attorney to alter my will so that my brother is the only person who possesses any inheritance from me. After that, I went to the bank to transfer 50% of the money that was previously held in our joint checking and savings accounts into new accounts that were solely in my name. When it came to our investment accounts, I followed the same procedure by consulting with my investment advisor. In an effort to alleviate my feelings of melancholy, I took my suitcase and drove to my parents' house, where I entered through the front door. My mother was taken aback when she saw me. "What exactly is going on, John?" she inquired about it. "Jessica has been contacting this location continually in an attempt to locate you. You mentioned that you would be present, didn't you?" It was then that I sat down with my father, who is now retired, and shared everything with them. What I said about Jessica cheating on me and that our marriage was over was so shocking to them that they couldn't believe it. When I asked my parents if I could stay with them for a while until I found a house that had furniture, they immediately stated that they would be willing to accommodate me. Someone rang the doorbell at approximately 6 o'clock in the evening, just as we were getting ready to eat dinner. My assumption was absolutely correct since the doorbell rang. After going to open the door, my father returned with Jessica, who appeared to be in a very distressed state. "What is the reason that you have not been picking up my calls, John? Please allow me to speak with you." "All your stuff is gone from our house," she said, her voice shaking. I thought. "The note I left on your computer would tell you everything you needed to know," I told her in a calm way. "Oh no, I was scared it was you who left that note. Can we please go talk somewhere, honey?" Jessica begged. "Jessica, I'm not your honey anymore, and there's nothing left for us to talk about. I've started the process to get a divorce, and if we need to say anything, our lawyers can handle it. Seeing what you did in Denver has completely destroyed any feelings I had for you. And I'd appreciate it if you left so I can enjoy my dinner," I said without hesitation. "Please, John, let's not end things without having a proper conversation," she begged with desperation. What possible justification could you possibly have for cheating on me? It was not self-defense. That much is certain. Especially after what I saw ample proof of, I shot back, keeping my ground. You might want to give David, your lover, a heads up that I'm coming for him next. That's for sure. I'm curious what his wife will think of all this," I added. "Oh my God, can't we just talk about this?" "John, please," Jessica begged, her voice full of fear. "Just leave, Jessica. You're making my dinner go cold," I insisted. "But here's a thought. Why don't you take your time and write me a detailed letter explaining why you thought it was okay to break our marriage vows? I'm certain a lawyer as clever as you could come up with a convincing argument that it was all my fault, claiming you still have a lot of love and respect for me." With tears in her eyes, Jessica turned to leave, but then paused and looked back at me. "Please, John, reconsider ending our marriage without us having a real discussion. Goodbye, Jessica," I stated firmly. After she had gone, tears streaming down her face, my parents sat in silence, shocked by our conversation. "John, that was quite harsh," my mom pointed out. "Mom, would you like to see the pictures I have of her with another man?" "That's the real harsh reality," I responded sharply. "She's shown me complete disrespect, and I can't accept that. I can't ever trust her again." "Do you really want me to have children with someone who acts like that?" I get it, son, my dad finally said after a moment. But maybe, after things settle down, you might start to see things a bit differently. I don't think so, Dad. Can we change the subject and just finish dinner, I asked, eager to move on from the topic. Certainly, son, my father replied, albeit with a certain amount of reluctance. When I left my house on that Monday morning, I was filled with a mixture of emotions: regret for having to part ways with John, and excitement for our future plans to raise a family together. We had gone through the process of being patient and making sure that we were prepared for this next step in our careers as well as financially. Suddenly, it appeared as though everything was falling into place flawlessly. There were no hitches on the flight to Denver. In addition, I discovered that I was seated next to David Price, who was our top negotiator. After a brief discussion about our jobs, we moved on to more personal topics, such as our families, and continued our conversation. When I became pregnant, David was aware of my plan to quit my job without further explanation. In addition, he expressed how much he would miss working with me after I became a stay-at-home mom. In the years leading up to my marriage, my mother, David, who was 48 years old and had been married for 20 years with children, had been my partner in talks. We had a strong familiarity with one another and collaborated effectively. All of the other members of our team were seated behind us, engrossed in their conversations. On the day that we arrived at the hotel in Denver, the fact that our rooms were adjacent to one another was a convenient arrangement that allowed us to talk about work well into the night. However, things began to alter in our relationship around 10 years ago, and we began to view the time we spent together as a means of relieving the pressures that we experienced at work. When we realized that it was actually beneficial to our work, we told ourselves that it wasn't cheating. There were times when we even made jokes about it. I had been married to John for a few years when I began to experience feelings of guilt regarding my secret encounters with David. As a result, we decided to stop having them. But then, in the middle of a particularly challenging negotiation, David recommended that we begin anew in order to assist alleviate the stress. I reluctantly came to an agreement, and then I discovered that I was drawn back into the affair. My feelings of guilt were alleviated as a result of the fact that the excitement and the risk associated with it made things more thrilling at home with John. The first night of this journey, David and I did not get together because I was too exhausted to do so. However, after a laborious day of negotiations the next day, I made the decision to meet up with him. Not only do I not know how or when John discovered it, but I also do not know how he obtained that picture. However, when I saw it on my laptop the following morning, I was utterly taken aback. During the course of the negotiations, David, who was seated next to me, quickly shut down my laptop and requested a break. We entered the corridor, where he was visibly distressed, and we looked at him. "What is the reason for the presence of such a picture on your laptop?" He inquired about it. "It's not clear to me, David," still in a state of astonishment. I responded by saying that that wasn't the last time I used it. He suggested that we take a second look at it. Once more, we opened the laptop and glanced at the picture on the screen simultaneously. Then he said, "Oh no, that's just you. I don't understand how that could be." I did not understand. "The person under you appears to be me, even though you are unable to see my face. I am not certain, but that is most certainly you. The person underneath you looks like it could be me. There is a possibility that someone could have taken the image if you left your laptop anywhere." No, not only was it in my room or yours, but it was with me during the entire vacation. I answered that I couldn't fathom how someone could have gotten inside to take a picture. My assumption was that the door was locked because it was closed. "Now is the time for you to return to the hotel and check to see if anyone was allowed to enter your room the previous evening. In order to take care of everything, I will remain here. If you want to know where John was last night, you should try to get in touch with him. I had a conversation with him while he was at his parents' house, therefore it is improbable that it was him. Did you phone the landline number of his parents?" But he instructed me to use his mobile phone instead. That is cause for concern. At the time of your call, he might have been at any location. Please get in touch with me on my mobile phone if you discover anything, and make an effort to resolve this situation. To go to the hotel, use a taxi. You got it, and I'll see you later. My body was drenched in sweat. It would be a very good sign that we are finished if John were to put that photo on my laptop. In order to understand out what was going on, I had to return to the hotel. I was able to get a taxi from the person working at the front desk, and I arrived at the hotel in no time at all. On my way to the reception desk, I inquired as to whether or not anyone had entered my room. They checked their system and informed me that a Mr. John Baker was given a key at 9:45 last night, and he returned it 30 minutes later. This information was provided to me by the guy working there. The realization that my marriage was most likely finished came to me at that same moment. Even though the man I loved more than anything else was no longer in my life, I was resolute in my efforts to bring him back. Following my arrival at my hotel, I immediately attempted to call John's cell phone, which was located at his office. Due to the fact that his phone was turned off, I left a voicemail in which I stated that it was quite vital for him to call me back. His secretary informed him that he was present in California on a business trip and that he would return the next day. Therefore, he traveled to California and may have made a surprise visit to me on his way back to the United States. It would appear that we were both taken aback by the outcome. He had not been seen by his parents for a few days, according to what they told me when I called them. As soon as they get a message from him, I requested that they inform him to give me a call. I attempted to call our home as well, but nobody picked up the phone. In the hopes that he would call back soon, I also left a message at that location. While I was sitting in the room by myself, I was unable to stop crying. I booked the next trip back to St. Louis as soon as I realized there was no other way to get in touch with him. Following the completion of the packing process, I called David on my phone to inform him of the situation. Following a brief period of silence, he finally spoke up and said, "Jessica, it appears that we are both in danger of getting divorced, or perhaps something even more serious. A divorce is worse than this." How could that possibly be? The dating of managers is strictly prohibited by our company's policies. It's possible that both of us will lose our jobs if word gets out. Both of our professional lives would suffer as a result of this. Oh goodness, I didn't even consider that possibility. As soon as John is gone, it feels like the world is coming to an end. If I were to lose my job in addition to that, it would be too much. But, for now, I need to go back to St. Louis and try to talk to John. Maybe there's an opportunity to fix things. I've got a flight leaving at midday and I'll be back in St. Louis by 4:30. I need to locate him and have a conversation with him. I will keep you updated on the situation. Until we have finished our business discussions, I am required to remain here. I'll be waiting to hear from you after saying goodbye. I grabbed my things and hurried to the lobby, checked out, and took the hotel's limo to the airport. On the flight back to St. Louis, all I could do was hope that I could get John to talk to me. I wanted to make it clear that what happened was just physical and didn't mean anything emotionally. I hoped he would be able to see my cheating as just a one-time thing without feelings attached. When I got back home, everything looked normal at first. But when I went into our bedroom and saw his clothes and stuff were gone, I realized he knew and had left me. I needed to find him. After trying to call him many times and not getting through, I decided to go to his parents' place to see if I could find out where he was or get any information from them. Seeing him at his parents' house was really tough. He was so cold and distant, it made me feel sick. He told me straight up he was going to divorce me and didn't care at all about what I had to say. Nothing would change his mind. When he told me to write a letter explaining my side, it just felt like he was twisting the knife. I had to leave and go cry in my car. The future we planned together was falling apart. We wouldn't have the family we wanted, grow old together, or enjoy grandchildren. In the middle of feeling so low, I also worried selfishly that I might be too old to have kids by the time I found someone new. Eventually, I found the energy to start the car and head back to what felt like an empty house, overwhelmed by a deep feeling of loss and not knowing what comes next. John goes on with his story. After a restless night haunted by images of Jessica and David together, I got up early and went downstairs at my parents' place to make some coffee. Feeling down, I grabbed my laptop and camera, ready to go through the photos on the camera. I was obsessed with finding David in those photos. As I looked through the pictures, I couldn't make out David's face clearly. But I kept looking and finally noticed something on his right arm as he reached out to Jessica. When I zoomed in, I saw what I was looking for, a tattoo. Zooming in more, I saw a heart tattoo with Janie 8 written inside it. Janie 8 is David's wife's name. With this proof, I went back upstairs, took a shower, and got ready for work. By the time I came back down, my mom was busy making breakfast. At work, I immediately made a few CDs with the photo, showing the affair and a close-up of David's tattoo. I also printed out several copies and put everything in a folder. Feeling determined, I went straight to the HR department to talk to the manager, Chad. We knew each other from working at the same small company and even played golf together once. I laid out the photos in front of him and waited for him to react. "What's this, John?" 30 pictures. Chad looked both curious and amused. "Sorry, Chad, it looks wrong, but that's my wife and David Price." The photos were taken on Tuesday night in David's hotel room in Denver, as you can tell by the date and time on them. They were on a business trip for negotiations for our company. "Oh no, John, that's tough to hear. What's your plan?" "You could fire them both for breaking the no dating rule in their job contracts. We've never actually done that before. Are you sure you want to go through with it? It'll make the affair public." "And are you thinking of divorcing Jessica?" I've already told my lawyer to start working on the divorce papers, but if the company doesn't do anything, I'll have to sue the company. All right, John, I'll talk to our legal team and get things started. Then, I went to tell my boss, Hubert, about what was going on in my personal life. He was really surprised and worried when he heard about my wife and David Price. I asked for the rest of the week off as vacation, and he agreed without hesitation. Before we said goodbye, he praised me for my work on the California trip. He told me the customer was really happy with how quickly I solved their problem and got their production line running again. He also mentioned the possibility of me taking over the California area because the current engineer is retiring for health reasons. I said I'd think about it and let him know my decision next week. When I was leaving Hubert's office, his secretary, Lucy, stopped me. John, your wife came by looking for you. She said she'd come back later. Lucy, I don't want to see my wife at all. Please tell her that if she comes back. Oh, John, I'm so sorry. I didn't know there was a problem. There's a big problem, Lucy, we're getting a divorce. She and David Price have been cheating. I figured everyone at work would know by lunchtime since Lucy loves to chat. When I got back to my desk, I called David's wife, Janet. We've seen each other at work events, but telling her about our partners was going to be tough. Janet, it's John Baker. How are you? I'm okay, John. David said you might call, but didn't say why. Janet, we need to talk. Is now a good time? Sure, John. I have to go to the hairdresser at 1, but I'm free now. You know where I live, right? Yes, I do. I'll be there in 15 minutes. When I got to the Prices, I was nervous about what I had to do. I couldn't let David get off easy and leave Jessica to deal with everything. Hi, John. Come in. Do you want some coffee? I just made it, Janet said, welcoming me and pointing to the living room. Sure thing, Janet. Just plain black, please, I said. After a short while, she came back with a coffee and sat down across from me. So, what's up? She asked. I thought about breaking it to you gently, but decided to just be direct. I need to tell you something tough, I said, wanting to get it done. Janet, I saw your husband and my wife together in Denver. I'm divorcing Jessica and getting them fired from their jobs. I hate being the one to break this news, but it's going public soon. And I wanted to give you a heads up. I have photos if you want proof. I watched her closely for a reaction, but she didn't show much emotion. John, I've had suspicions about David's behavior on his business trips for a while now, though I hope they weren't true. She admitted. David has always been a loving husband and dad, and I didn't want to think about the possibility. But I realized that sooner or later, their affair would come out into the open. I guess this is it. I'm really sorry for what you're dealing with in your marriage, and from my own side too. I feel bad for what might happen to David. He's at an age where finding another job with the same pay could be tough. Now, I've got to figure out what to do next. Would you like a copy of the pictures I have? I asked. Yes, please leave them. I'll find the courage to look at them, Janet replied quietly. I'm truly sorry. Janet. I couldn't ignore this. Jessica and I were close to starting a family, but I can't see a future with someone I can't trust or respect. The mother of our kids needs both of those things, I explained, my voice heavy with sadness. I get it, John. Thanks for being straight with me. I'd rather hear it from you first. And I want to say again how sorry I am about what's happening with Jessica. I'm sure she feels awful too, and David will when he finds out I know about their affair. I just wish it was a one-time thing. It'd be easier to forgive. But I think it's been happening for years. That's hard to take now that it's out there. I've got my pride and I need to keep my head up, Janet said, her voice sounding both sad and determined. Just as I was getting ready to leave and drive back to my parents' place, I made a sincere statement to the effect that, if there was anything I could do to assist, I would have appreciated it. A final word. When I first started the process of getting a divorce, it has been 6 months. The final documents, which legally put an end to my marriage to Jessica, were delivered to me this morning. My attorney had taken care of everything, so I hadn't spoken to her or seen her since the day she arrived to my parents' house. The divorce agreement required me to give up the house, which had a significant mortgage, in addition to all of the furniture and other items that I had purchased on credit solely for the purpose of severing all links with her. I also tried to get my name removed from the mortgage, which meant that she was responsible for making all of the payments. Without my consistent income, she was forced to sell the house, which resulted in a significant financial setback for her. Her initial attempt to oppose the divorce was unsuccessful, however. I presented her with a choice: either she signed the divorce papers within 48 hours, or I would change the cause for the divorce to cheating and post images of her and David on the internet. She gave in to the pressure and agreed within the allotted amount of time, which is the reason why I am now a free man. It appears that she came to the conclusion that she did not even want me that much after all. Despite the fact that Jessica was fired from her job as a result of the events that transpired, she is a savvy attorney who was able to secure a new position within a month. There is a possibility that it does not pay as much or have the same benefits as her previous job, but I have heard that she is making it through and has even begun dating again. She wishes her new boyfriend, whoever he may be, the best of luck. What I can't help but question is whether or not she has informed him about our divorce and the reasons behind it. Maybe it would be best if I told him myself. David is now in a difficult financial situation as a result of Janet's divorce. He was able to secure a new position despite the fact that he had been dismissed. Because of his increased salary, it is difficult for him to continue paying alimony and child support as they are due. To speak for myself, I have made my home in Santa Maria, California, a tranquil seaside town that is located exactly halfway between the Bay Area and Los Angeles. I am able to travel to both the northern and southern regions of the state with relative ease thanks to this location. I have been at this location for around 4 months now, and I currently reside in an apartment complex that is full of young couples and singles, many of whom are putting money away in order to purchase a home, due to the high cost of housing in this area. It is difficult to enter the market because of the situation. Furthermore, I have discovered a companionship with a woman who resides in the same building as myself. She, like myself, has been through a divorce, yet we have found solace and compatibility with each other during our separation. In order to determine whether or not there is a future for us together, we are taking things slowly. Due to the fact that I am required to travel frequently for work, trust is of utmost significance in any relationship, particularly if we are considering having children in the future. My biological clocks are constantly ticking, which serves as a constant reminder that time does not wait for anyone, and as a result, I am considering making a move sooner rather than later.